Okay, so we are near the final stages of the vertical water pumping. So we have the pump is down inside the well. We've got the very end of our tubing or well pipe sticking up out of the well. We have the well cap and everything ready to go. This is the scariest part to me because you can't really make a whole lot of mistakes. So I'll show you when we get to this point how I do it, and I'm going to be doing it by myself. You notice I have the safety rope or drop cable. I've got it tied off real good right now, and you can see the tension on it from the weight of the well, the pump, and all of that piping, and the electrical cord. I got the electrical cord coming up, and so all this has to fit up through the cap. I got the drop cable coming up through the cap, but I also got to get the electrical cable coming up through the cap. And I'm going to pan for just a second over here. So I've got the table all ready for all the different material we're going to need to get the water all the way up into our storage tank. Okay, so I'm going to set the camera back down on its tripod where it was, and then I'm going to go over there and we're going to start putting this together. Let me turn the monitor around. There we are. And I'm wearing my St. Philip's t-shirt today, so y'all can tell I'm with St. Philip's. So I'm going to set my tools and everything right here on the edge of this table. So I've got my clamps, I've got my 5-in-1 screwdriver, I've got my Teflon tape, and then I've got the fitting I got to put in. These are really hard to get in on this last piece, and so I've got some lubricant in case I need it for these threads, and then also I've got channel locks so I can hold on to the tubing while we're dropping all this down, this tubing right here. Alright, so we'll pop the cap out, and then we're going to try to get this guy in. One of the things we want to do is get our clamps on first. So you know me, I like to have one in one direction, one in another direction, and then one, doesn't really matter. They're all the same. And then I'm going to have this one be this way. Okay, so we should be in good shape. I think I got it right. And like I said, this is the hardest part, is to get this guy to go in here at the very end. And so I'm going to put just a little bit of lube on it. Came out pretty quick right there. This just helps it slide in. And one of the things too is I'm going to have to probably pound on this, but I want to not pound directly on the threads because I don't want to hurt my threads, because this guy doesn't go in real easy. So let me see if I can clamp onto this. Just bear with me while I try to figure out the best way to get this in. Went in fairly easy that way. Channel locks are adjustable. 2 adjustable. Oh, I know. Let's see how this works. Okay. I'm going to go find something to pound this in with, and I'll be right back. So I'm going to turn the camera off and then turn it right back on. Okay, so I got a hammer, and I got a threaded PVC plastic pipe fitting. So I'm going to put that on the end of my threads to protect them. And then I'm going to use the hammer to see if I can pound this in. That hurt. Almost. All right, this guy's all the way on now. You can see it right there. You'll see more of it here in just a minute. Now I want to bring this up and tighten these. I just had my multi-tip. What'd I do with it? Oh, it's right here. Good thing it didn't bite me. Gonna do this one this way. Right here in the end. Do this one from the other direction. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this one down to about here, and I'm going to clamp it real good on this pipe, because what it's going to do is going to keep this pipe from dropping down into the well. And then once I get, this has bolts on it, which you can use to tighten up, and when you tighten it up, it clamps onto this pipe and keeps it from moving. So I'm going to put this one right about here. That'll leave enough pipe out of the well for us to work on. And then, like I said, once I get the wellhead clamped and everything real good, then we'll move this one up into place. Because once all of this slips, I don't think it's going to slip down anyway because of all this right here. I don't think it can fit through there. So I cut myself a whole lot of extra electrical cord just so I can get over to the pump controller. And so I'm going to fit this up through here. All this can move. There we go. Fit it up through here. I'm going to put it through the hole. Of course, it barely fits. Where it's going to be coming out of. I'm going to pull all my excess out of here. And the fun part is when we go to take this guy loose, because then I'm going to be holding all this with one hand and then trying to fit this cap together. One of the things I want to do, let me get some sandpaper. I want to sand that bottom. And then also I'm going to put some more of this lubricant where that fits down so that we can always pull the cap back off. I had to stop yesterday. I got so hot, I almost passed out. And then the camera got so hot, it stopped working. That cable's pretty tight. Yeah, it ain't coming up. It's going down, but it's not coming up. All right. So, to me, this is the scariest part. Oh, I should have pushed that rope through there first. Okay, it's already up and through there. I got to get it through the hole that's for this particular line. Luckily, there's quite a bit of friction. Got my lube. I'm using the bend here to help me a little bit. You can probably tell I'm kind of breathing heavy. This part, like I said, this part scares me. Come down here and tie this off. All right, should be in pretty good shape right now. Now then, like I said, it's got these bolts up here, and when I tighten these bolts up, it expands these gaskets in here and puts pressure on all these different components. Uh-oh. Thought I had that tight. Go ahead and just tie that off now, because we're never going to use that again unless we pull the pump back up. So 5/8 is the wrench for this cap. Get everything. I'm going to turn this way because I'm going up that way to get over to my controller. And now I'm just going to tighten up these bolts. This wasn't too bad. The weight wasn't too bad. I calculated it was about 120 pounds total, maybe a little more, 140. I weigh 165, so it's like holding my own weight. Still turning, haven't expanded enough yet. Now it's getting there. Now this guy's in my way. I might loosen it just so I can slide it. That's pretty tight now on that pipe. Get this back up where I want it. Yeah, see, that's all tight on that pipe now. And that pipe's not going to want to move. Now this is where we're going to go to a rigid pipe. I'm going to use plastic PVC. And so we'll need to thread this first so we don't get any leaks. Now I'll bring the camera over there so you can see. You can see these gaskets. They've really tightened up around both this cable and this wire, as well as this. This isn't moving at all now. And the cap's not moving at all anymore either. Keep everything nice and tight. They even tightened up around this cable, so this cable's now loose. Get my camera and let me get my phone actually. This is what's nice about having your cell phone. Your cell phone, I keep telling you, is your best tool. And take a picture down in there. That way you can see how that clamp, it's got a little gasket, and that gasket tightens up around this pipe, this rope, and this wire. All right. I also got a picture of going down the well for you. So it's probably about 11 o'clock in the morning. It's already starting to get warm, so let's hurry up and get this done. So I already got the fittings laid out on the table, which I had showed you. And then one of the things we always have to do, you know, we have to do our threads, our pipe threads. And so this is the juice for our pipe threads. Always got to check. Got so hot yesterday it stopped filming, so I got to keep checking, looking to make sure I see that red light. So this is our Teflon tape, which we use on all our threaded joints. This is a threaded fitting. Threaded on one side, and then it's slip fitting on the other for our glue. Goes on real nice and easy. Sure hope this doesn't leak when we get it all together. It only leaks when it's be pumping. Alright, that's on there pretty tight. So I'm going to turn the camera off for a second because I've got to reposition it so that you can see the top of the tank. What we want to do is we want to get our point A to B. So point A is the top of the well right here, top of the well, and point B is the top of the tank. And so I'm gonna move the camera, and you might want to invest in one of these. They're about $60 US for one of these. I don't know how many rupees that is, but I'm sure it's a lot. But this gives you, it's a unibit, so there's 1/2 inch, there's 3/4, there's 1 inch. So for the 1 inch fittings we're going to be using, we're going to have to drill a hole until this all the way goes through the top of the tank. And they fall out of the drill bit, so the drill, so it may wind up in the bottom of the tank. But I got a magnet and I can fish it out with a magnet. All right, so I'm going to turn off the camera and relocate it so you can see the top of the tank. Okay, so this is what I want to do next. I want to actually find point B. So right here is point A, and in my hand is point B. So to do that, I'm going to use my drill, my cordless drill with my unibit. Like I said, it'll probably fall into the tank. I'm also going to take the lid off the top of the tank. I'm going to climb up on the ladder, and I'm going to try to guesstimate perfect center, and I'm just going to drill a hole. All right. Let's see if my fitting works. And it does. So this is called a male adapter, and then I'm going to use this female reducer just to lock it in place so it doesn't move around on us. And with that lid off, I can reach in there without any trouble, get it back up on my ladder. It's pretty clean down inside the tank. You'll be able to see here in a little bit when we go to do, when the water starts flowing, and then when we go to do, all right, see? That male adapter's in there real well. So now then what I want to do is start running my pipe. Have my glue and my primer. Primer is really nasty, it gets everywhere. Here's my glue. Let me cut a couple of pieces of short pipe. So I have 1 inch PVC pipe, and I'm going to just cut a bunch of short pieces, and then we'll use those little short pieces to stack this up. Because first we got to make our Christmas tree, or I think that's what they call it, you know, in the oil fields. And what we're going to do, what I want to do is first come up, have a valve so I can isolate this thing when I want to work on it. Then I'm going to do a hose bib so I can get untreated water to the animals or livestock. And then we're going to go straight up and over and into the tank. So I'm going to cut me several short pieces. I'm going to sand the ends. Then I'm going to prime them. And then I'm going to start gluing these different parts together. We're going to use our piping, and we're going to strap our electrical wire to it that goes over to our pump controller. The pump controller is just on the other side of this tank. We'll prime these ends real good. This stuff stains real bad, so try not to get it on you or on your fingers. We're going to go get our valve. So I already put our valve together and put 2 male adapters on each side of the valve. Just prime up my ends. Oh, the breeze feels good. So now I'm ready for my glue. And you want to see how you want this handle to work. I want it to go this way so it shows the flow. Glue both ends, push it in tight. Sometimes it'll want to float back up. I always like to have it in the open position, just in case glue gets down inside it. I will be able to straighten this up however we want once we get the main piece of pipe on here. Now I'm going to put the hose bib on. So the hose bib is going to be made up of several parts. This one's the T. I'm going to put it off to the side here so it's facing you guys. I've already primed all these connectors, so all I have to do is just put some glue on this part right here. Now then, all this is 3/4 inch. And so this is a 1 inch to 3/4 adapter, and it's a slip adapter. This is a 3/4 inch threaded adapter. It's amazing how many parts you got to have just to try to do one thing. And so what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to put these two together so that when I glue it, I know it's facing straight down. All right? So on this adapter, I have to prime both the outside and then the inside. I'm not going to do the inside right now because I'm going to get my fingers all dirty. Then I can just put my glue right here, glue right there, and then push the two together. Now then, you see this is threaded, so what does that mean? Teflon tape. So we get our Teflon tape. Remember what I said? You go backwards. See how easy that is when you go backwards? It just comes right off the spool, goes right on the threads. So what I want to do now is, see those are threads inside there? I'm going to thread this into here. And then now I'm ready to glue it in here, and now I know it's going to come straight down. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this label. Got water in my eyes. Got this here. I'm going to go ahead and prime it. Now I'm going to prime this one. Put on my glue. Put on my glue. Slide the two together. Now I have a hose bib. Now I'm ready to go straight up. You probably won't see the top of this one because we're so close, but you will see it as we turn and go across the top of the tank. So I'm going to cut a short piece for up at the top of the tank and then get that 90 ready. Gotta knock all my tools down. Remember, always stand your ends. I'm going to go ahead and put the 90 on here before I get up there. That way I've already got it in place. So I'm going to cut this piece of pipe. I'm going to cut it long. I'm going to then cut the horizontal piece of pipe coming across this way, cut it long. I'll readjust the camera so you can see how you find out exactly where you cut these two, the vertical piece and the horizontal piece. So I got to get all this primed. Remember, it's very messy. Prime the inside of my 90. And this is where it gets a little dangerous. I'm going to go up there. I didn't prime the top of that male adapter. Move everything off the ladder so it doesn't fall. I'm just going to take the brush, not the can. Get that all primed up. Take my glue, go to the top of the tank. And then I'm going to put my mill adapter on there. What's nice, you see, it's kind of loose so it can kind of turn. It looks like a periscope, doesn't it? On a submarine. All right, so I'm going to get my tape measure and kind of figure out what size piping I need. So I want this to be pretty vertical, which is going to be right about there. Put your tape measure in your fitting, come across. 5 feet would be plenty. So I'm going to cut me a 5-foot piece, and I'm going to prime both ends. Measure it. 5 foot about right about there. We don't have to be exact right now. Okay, I'm only going to sand one in right now because I'm only going to be gluing one in. I'm still got to measure and cut the other end. Going to prime it. Then I'm going to take the glue with me up to the top of the tank. Put the glue in the male adapter, or the 90. Put some glue on the pipe. Push the two together, and we're in good shape. So, right about there, let me get my level, and then that'll kind of tell me what height I really need to be at. So I have my small level. Believe it or not, that's level right there. Hang on. Come on. The wind keeps blowing my tape over. Didn't have any wind the other day when it was really hot, and now we got some wind this morning. So that needs to be a little bit about 14 inches. I'm going to put it on a negative going towards the tank. And so I'm going to need exactly, yeah, 14 inches would be perfect. So I'm going to cut a 14-inch piece. And then this one still needs to be cut shorter when I go to push this over, okay? Get my saw, measure off 14 inches. PVC doesn't really have to be all that accurate. Alright, so we got to sand both ends again. Now this one is the actual size, so I'm going to go ahead and prime both ends. And I'm also going to put a 90 on one of these ends. Got to prime my 90. I'm going to go ahead and prime both ends. Climb up and get my glue. So now then, I'm not going to put my 90 on just yet because I still got to cut this pipe. So let me put my speed level. Kind of mark where I want to cut this. Well, that's pretty close to being level. I'm going to go ahead and put it a little tighter just because it looks better. So I'm going to cut that right there. Let me get my saws on. I'm going to go with what looks right, not what actually is right. Get my adhesive, put it on both pieces. Actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this one first. You'll see why. Put my glue in here. Put my glue up here. Hopefully I have enough glue on all these so they don't leak. But I can pull this together and then push this down and it all goes together just fine. How you like that? So now then, all the plumbing for our vertical piping is done all the way to the tank. So there's two things we have to do now. We have to put the float switch in the tank, and then we also have to take this wire and we're going to connect it to, let me get all my tools out of the way. I'm going to go get some zip ties, because we got to come up and over this tank. With our wiring over to, all the way over to our controller. So, I'm going to turn the camera off for a second. I'm going to go get some zip ties and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got some, let me make sure the camera's rolling. You can see if it's checking off time. Looks like it. I got the light on anyway. So, got some zip ties, and I'm going to start zip tying this cable to the pipe. Make sure it's good and strong right here at the 90. You see how easy that tank moved? No water in it yet. It actually just kind of slid around. So once we get some water in there, it won't move that easy. So now then, we have our cable, our piping and everything up and over to the top of the tank. And then our wiring goes over the top of the tank, and it's going to go over to the controller. So I'm going to turn the camera off and relocate it, put it in the shade where it can cool down, and then where I can cool down too. And show you how to wire this thing up, and then we're going to turn the pump on and start filling this tank. Before we can fill this tank, we've got to close off this bottom port, which I'll show you in a little bit, and we've got to put a valve on there so that we can work on the tank whenever we want to. All right, so see you in just a little bit. All right, everybody, I'm back. I'm going to turn this off for a second just to check to make sure we're filling properly. Okay, so I checked the camera, and it looks like everything's working good. The lights are on, everything's filming. So we're almost done. We're ready to fill this tank. It's 500 gallons. we're going to be pumping about 2 gallons per minute. And so, based on my calculations, that's going to take close to 5, maybe 6 hours to fill this up, depending on how much sunlight we got going back and forth. Because we're using a solar pump, a 24-volt solar pump. And the solar panels that we installed last week, that's what's going to be powering this unit. So, let's go ahead and finish everything up. So, the wire's coming across the top of the tank. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just zip tie it up here, get it out of the way. This is our controller. This is our 110 volt supply that we're going to be using for our water purification when we get to that. So we're going to finish up, this will finish up our vertical pumping, and then our next film session will be horizontal, and then which is the pressure pump right here, pressure tank, see the pressure tank? And then we will start the purification. So I just want to figure out how much I need. I'm just going to leave a pretty good sized loop right here, just in case I ever want to make some changes. And this has a ground bus in it, so I'm going to go ahead and give myself some wire. Strip this back pretty good. And this isn't going in the water, so this is up in dry air, so I'm not too worried about if I nick the insulation or anything. I may care about it if I shock myself. So I'm going to need the green to go in one direction. I'm going to need the black and red to go in the other direction. And it has right here, it shows which is the positive and negative on the pump. Alright? And then it shows the negative and the positive on the PV. We're going to hook the PV up. The PV is over here on this other electrical panel. I'm going to have to turn the camera just a little bit so that you can see that when we go to make those connections. Clipped off my insulation, trash management. All right, so I'm going to come up into my box. I'm going to use the big hole. And then I want to strip these. You can strip them 2 different ways. You can use your knife. Take a good chance on cutting yourself. Now before we can fill this tank, we're going to have to put a valve on the bottom so that we can close the bottom of the tank, and then that valve will allow us to put our different adapters in to power. We want water to be able to come out of this tank and feed livestock, and then we also want any water that comes out of this tank is going to be purified water. So maybe we don't want it to go to livestock, but we do want to put a hose bib in so individuals can come up, wash their hands, and get drinking water. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make these connections. The negative is going to be black. Let me hook the green up first. Which is our ground. And you can see why we have this grounding block down here that we installed. All right, now we're going to hook up our negative. Loosen it enough so we can get behind the plate. And we're going to hook up our positive. This is our positive, the red one. So what's nice about this one, it has a LWC, low water cutoff. So it can actually, if the pump runs dry and it senses, it has a short circuit that the water creates. And when it doesn't see that short circuit, it automatically shuts the pump off because you don't want that pump running while it's dry. Now there's a series of dip switches in here. And so we want low water cutoff. We actually want it turned on. They have it in the off position. This one right here is not used. Remote switch logic. Yes, we're going to have a remote switch. So that is the third one over. 1, 2, 3. And then one of the things it talked about in the down position or the up position is normally open or normally closed. So I'll have to read the instructions again and see which way we want it. We want a 130 volt module, which is this one right here, and it's in the on position. So we're going to be feeding this straight off the solar panels, and those solar panels will easily be hitting 30 volts, all right? So that's pretty much what we have there. So now the next step that we have is we have to, in order to make this thing all work, we have to install our float switch. This is our float switch. And so in this position, we want it to be about here. So we're going to add this weight, which will be here. And then this wire will go back up, come out, and it'll go to this controller. All right? So this is our next step, is to get this float switch installed. And so that's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to turn the camera off because I'm going to have to move the table. And I'm going to have to get my ladder over here because I'm not quite tall enough to reach the top of that tank. And we'll get everything cleaned up and moved around. So, give me a second. Alright, so now we're ready to install our float switch. And so we'll do the float switch. Once that's connected up, we'll go ahead and then I'll show you how we put in, there's a reason we did all the electrical that we did before we even got started on all this, just so you can see our control systems. And so I'm going to go ahead and put this in, and then let me go ahead and grab my weight. I'm going to need my weight. And then we'll look at the dip switches, over here on the back again, just to make sure they're right. The dip switches on the controller. So we have two more things that we have to hook up. We have the float switch, but then we also have the ozonator for our water purification. So that's going to take two different penetrations in here. Actually, the ozonator is going to take, I want it to be as close as possible to the center. I'm going to go ahead and put the our float switch down right about here. All I got to do is drill a hole big enough for this wire to go through, and then we'll tie a knot into it. See, it doesn't scare me to drill holes. That's what you're supposed to do. But I probably could have drilled it right through the side here. I'm just going to check to see if the hole's big enough. If it's not, then I'll have to re-drill it. Not quite. I mean, it goes through, but it's not going to be easy from the other side. Let me just make it a little bit bigger. be able to fit that wire through there from the inside. So I'm going to leave everything out here because I don't want to drop anything into the tank. Feed my wire through. Now we're getting ready to put the weight on. And we talked about having the weight down so that when this floats up, it's about here. So I need a little bit more slack. So we want to do something about like that. So I'm going to put the weight right here. All you do is slide it out, put that in there, and then slide this guy back in. Try to push everything down. Oh, I got it in backwards. Hang on. Ugh. Got these little grooves. Alright, locked in. See how that works? It's going to float up. So now then I can just go ahead and drop all this in here. Slowly. And what I want to do is tie a knot in this at this location. That knot will keep it from going down in. And now I'm going to readjust the camera. Give me 2 seconds. Take it back over to the board and lower it back down so you can see that controller. All right, so now then we got to hook the float switch into the controller. Same situation. The float switch, all you're doing is making a connection. And so it doesn't matter which one is positive, which one's negative, because it doesn't. It's just, all it is power. Okay? So I'm going to go up through the outside hole. And then they've already pre-stripped these wires. They're a little too long. So I'm going to tighten them up a little bit. And then I'm going to clip them. I don't want anything shorting out while we're trying to work on this situation. Of course, I guess there is no short here because it's just, all it is a connection. It's either an open or a closed. Alright, so this over here is our float switch on this side, and all we have to do is hook the 2 wires up. It doesn't matter what 2 wires we hook, or what wire hooks to what terminal. Now then we need to bring our power in from this other panel, and let me just swing this over a little bit. So I've got the cover open, and so now what we want to do is we want to bring the power from that panel over to here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run it along the top just so that it doesn't get in our way. And then we have plenty of extra wire. You'd be surprised at how much wire is on the ground already over here, just from what we've done. And so everything's looking pretty good. Let me open up this panel. So this is our DC distribution panel, and some dirt in here. And this particular breaker, this top breaker, is our main. So if I flip this whole panel now is energized. And each one of these breakers can be a different circuit. So think of them as an on-off switch. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And then what I want to do is I want to run power from here over to our controller. I've got a whole bunch of open air conductors. These are the scrap wire I've got. I'm going to check to see if the lengths are long enough. I hope they are. Got my knife. Oh yeah, I think we're in good shape. So I'll have these guys right here. I'm going to have to remove the stops that are in them. See if I can get them out. Actually, I can just punch a hole through them. So I'm going to do one for positive, do another one for negative. And then don't forget, we still have to bond all this stuff together, which I'll do off camera. And what's kind of cool about these breakers is you can actually pull them out, hook up your conductors, and then put it all back together. That way you know it's done properly. So this is going to be our positive one. And what do we do when we have our positive one? We want to phase tape it. We should have some red tape. Red tape. Tear off a little piece. And I'm going to phase tape this guy right here, so everybody knows that this is positive. Alright, so I'm going to go up and over, come down, get them in the bottom of this box over here. Phase tape it so we know it's positive. This is our phase tape. I'm going to put red on it for positive. I'm going to go ahead and strip it. Now one of the things too, I don't know if you can see this yet. Let me see if I can turn the camera a little bit. Alright, so those are our charge controllers. And so it's taken almost 2 days, and now the green light on the batteries is finally green. All right, back to our controller. Come in the bottom. You get down so I'm out of your way. And we're going to go on to the PV positive. This is our positive side. Put this wire up in there and then tighten it up. Check them all, make sure they're tight. Now we just need our negative. We're going to put our valve in the bottom of this tank, and then hopefully in about 15 minutes we're going to have water. Vertical pumping is pretty easy. It's all really actually pretty easy. It just takes time. Push this one through. Trim the end. Go ahead and cut it off. It looks kind of nasty. I want to find one that's easy to get into. That one right there looks pretty easy. Now, all the stuff in here is hot because I've got the fuses closed, I think. Let me go and look. Check to see. Oh yeah, we did close the fuses because we're charging the battery. I'm on the wrong side of that screw. Let me change position. Make sure you can see me over here. There we are. Okay, I'm back. So, we're hitting the negative bus bar inside this DC load center. So, always check your labels inside your boxes to make sure you have the right voltage and whether it's AC or DC. Now this one is rated for 250 volts AC or 125 volts DC. And so that's well above the 30 volts DC that we've got going through it. So if I flip this switch on here, it's going to activate that controller, which now is going to activate that pump. But we don't want to do that yet because I don't have that valve in the bottom. So let's go ahead. I'm going to turn the camera off for a second. I'm going to move it, and we're going to retool, and we'll get ready to close off this bottom port. I'm going to close it off with a valve. I like valves because it allows you to start and stop at a lot of different locations. Give me 2 seconds. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and hooked up our power supply, our DC power supply. So this is our DC distribution panel, and I phase taped this as red, and then I have our neutral going to our neutral bus, and I've hooked it up to this breaker. So this is our main, so if I turn this on, it energizes every single breaker in here. And then also I have this hooked to this breaker, so I can turn this on and off at this location without turning off any of these other circuits. So I've ran that now over to our controller, and so I hooked the positive here, and then I hooked the negative over here. And so now all this is hooked up and it's ready to go. I can go ahead and close this box now if I can get my wires out of my way. And I just want to make sure these are our dip switches. We'll come back and check all these one more time with the manual, just to make sure that's what we want, okay? And then this will come down and plug into this box. This is our AC load center. This is our inverter. And then this is our disconnect that we're going to use. It's a 60 amp. I put 50 amp fuses in it just to protect it. I put 10 amp fuses up there in the charge controller just to protect the charge controllers. And so we're looking pretty good. So we're going to move over to the bottom of the tank, the storage tank. I'm going to put in a valve. I like valves because the valves allow us to start and stop whenever we want to. It also allows for easy maintenance and easy expansion of our system. So give me 2 seconds. Let me redo the camera, and I'm going to retool, and we're going to go to the bottom of the tank and we're going to start working there. All right, I'm back. So to make this thing work and get our valve in there, we have to put a male adapter into the bottom of the tank right here. So the tank is a 2-inch port, 2-inch threaded port. And so what does that mean? You all know, anytime we have threaded, we gotta use our Teflon tape. So I got my Teflon tape out. Remember, do it backwards. See how it rolls off? Backwards. And this will take a big wrench. I'll look around to make sure I've got it here on the table. May have to go and get another wrench, because this one's going to be quite a bit of wrench. Use this whole spool today. Find my channel locks. We use channel locks quite a bit. May have to get a larger pair. This is a 2-inch pipe. And I'm going to have to go get a larger pair. Give me 2 seconds, I'll be right back. I'm going to call this a larger pair. Channel locks come in all different sizes. You know, right tool for the right job. Open up a little bit more so I can close it some more. There we go. You only get one chance to not have a leak, so let's go ahead and tighten it as much as we can. That's pretty tight. Now then what we want to do is we want to add this valve. And the valve's kind of dirty. It's been sitting on my shelf. but that's why we have this primer. So I'm going to go ahead and get this primed up. That wasn't good. Let me get that sand off there. All right. We're in a very sandy location, I guess you can see by all the sand. Okay, so we have this pipe. I'm going to go ahead and glue it and put it in there, and then we'll cut it off to the length I want. The 2-inch PVC. One of the nice things is we have this metal adapter right here. So if we need to, we can just cut this off, pull this out, and redo it another configuration. Glue both ends. Put that pipe in. Let it sit for a couple of seconds. I'm going to grab my Sawzall. Get that off. I grabbed some sandpaper if I could find it. I don't see it anywhere. I think the wind blew it away. Just scrape it down real good. And then I'm going to put my primer on it. Let that dry a little bit, set up. You can hear that sand. There's just so much sand here. And this stains everything. So now then, we're ready to put the valve in. And the valve, trying to figure out which way it turns. Looks like it turns that way. Yeah, okay. That's the closed position. Got the valve. This band is to the outside. All right. We're ready to go. So I'm going to glue this in place. Sometimes you want it on top. Sometimes you may want it on the side. Because at the top, you got to get in here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it to that side because my plumbing's coming this way. All right, so my valve's over here, so it's easy to get to and turn it on and off. I'm going to put a footing in here. It's going to come out. It's going to be a T. It's going to be a 1-inch going up, going into a top port up here. The other piece is going to come out of here and feed our pressure pump, and then go to our pressure tank. And then that will be our horizontal water pumping. Our horizontal is quick and easy, and then we have water purification. So we are now done with our vertical, except let's turn it on. Let's get some water into this tank. All right, you guys ready to see the water come? All right, I am too. Give me 2 seconds. I gotta go reposition myself and take the camera up to the top of the tank, and then we're gonna look inside the tank as that water starts to come in. I'll flip on the switches, and then we'll walk to the top of the tank up this ladder. Okay, so now we're ready to fire this thing up. I'm going to go ahead and close this bottom valve, and then that'll allow us to fill up this tank. Remember, I put the valve over here on the side so it's out of the way of our horizontal drilling. I'm not a horizontal piping. And then I'm going to come over here, and what I've got to do now is I've got to turn on our DC power supply, and then this turns on the pump controller, and then the pump controller Oh, so then it turns on the pump controller. The camera said I was panning too fast, so I'm going to go back up here. So I'm going to turn this guy on, and then I'm going to try to run and hurry up and get over to the inside of the tank. It's going to take a few minutes before that water starts to come up through that pipe, because it's 200 feet down, so it's going to take a while. So I'm going to flip the switch. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to climb the ladder. The tank doesn't have any water in it yet. Hang on a second. I hit my zoom. All right, so let's see what happens. It should be starting to come up through the tank. Uh-oh, I'm losing focus. Don't know why. There we go. Okay, it's in focus. Okay, I hear air coming up through the system. Working, our system's working, and based on the size of this tank and how much water we're getting out of this pump, I calculate it's going to take 5 hours, and so we'll just have to see what's going on, how long that'll take. So it's 2 o'clock right now. We'll probably run out of sunlight before we have our full 5 hours, but we're going to let this thing fill and just keep filling up until it's totally full, and then we'll start working on doing our horizontal water pumping and then our water purification. So that's it for vertical water. I'll try to look down in the tank. I don't want to. You can see the float switch hanging down right there. It'll float back up and then it'll turn off the pump once it's full. Okay? So we don't even have to worry about it. We can just let this thing run and let the float switch do what it needs.